As a small, open, and net energy and food importing economy, Mauritius is exposed to the negative impact of the conflict, primarily through one, an increase in our fuel and food import bill, which would increase the cost of imports and place upward pressure on inflation and the cost of living. Second, higher freight and insurance costs on our imports, increasing the cost of goods and adding further to domestic price pressures. And third, possible effects on foreign direct investment and the tourism sector, particularly if global uncertainty weighs on investor sentiment and international travel demand. Madam Speaker, the Macroeconomic Coordination Committee, which comprises representatives of the Prime Minister's Office, the Ministry of Finance, the Bank of Mauritius, Statistics Mauritius, and the Economic Development Board, has worked out different scenarios of the impact of the conflict on the economy. Prior to the outbreak of the conflict, it was estimated that the GDP growth for 2026 would be around 3.4%. It is now expected that if the conflict is resolved within a short period, the GDP growth rate could be lower at around 3.2%. However, under the scenario of a prolonged conflict, the GDP growth rate could be further reduced to below 3%. One of the main sectors that will be directly affected by this conflict is the tourism sector. The number of tourist arrivals, which was projected to be around 1,450,000 in 2026, will in all likelihood be lower and will depend on the severity and the duration of the conflict. The transport, logistics, and other trade-related activities are also expected to be affected by the conflict. Another important economic parameter that is expected to be affected is the inflation rate. Prices were initially expected to increase by around 4% on average in 2026. It is now estimated that the inflation rate could go up to 6%, depending on the trend in global prices of oil and other commodities. Overall, it is expected that the budget deficit would be higher by up to 2% of GDP. Against this backdrop, and in order to ensure a coordinated and proactive response, the Ministry of Finance has intensified its engagement with the private sector. A high-level committee, chaired by the Financial Secretary, and bringing together Business Mauritius and key public bodies, has been set up to take stock of the latest developments, assess the likely implications of the conflict on our economy, and come up with appropriate policy measures.